All right, good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'd like to call to order our Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 School Board Workshop to order. Thank you for everyone for showing up this morning. And as we always do, I'll hand it over to Vice Chair Seeger.
Well, good morning, and I think first up on our agenda is the Bachman track, so we'd ask Ms. Walsh and Ms. Tubb to come forward and share with us.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ms. Claire.
Are you coming up to panel too? Well, yeah, that's okay.
Adrian, you want?
I think you're on. Sure. Sit down or standing up?
Whatever you are most comfortable with. I wanted
Holding my
to
hands.
welcome Ms. Claire Jubb, the Assistant County Administrator, and Carrie Walsh, who is Human Services Director.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. So thank you for letting us come and talk to you for a few minutes about the Bachman Tract. So I'm Claire Jubb, I'm the Assistant County Administrator for Charlotte County, and I've been working on this project for several years. And as we go through my presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the history, we'll talk about where it is. Carrie's going to talk a little bit about affordable housing versus workforce housing, and then we'll maybe talk about some options moving forward and how we can maybe collaborate and partner to make this project a reality. So let's just start off with where it is. This is on Veterans. It's that big triangular section on Veterans and between Veterans and Hillsborough that has been sat vacant for many, many, many years. You own approximately 28 acres on the western side, and we own the other two parcels. So we have one parcel in the middle that's approximately 32 acres, and the final parcel, which is approximately 8 acres. The little triangular piece at the end already has some infrastructure for utilities on it, so that really isn't developable. So we're really looking at our 32 acres and your 28 acres as the area that is developable. It's high and dry, it's not in a flood zone, and it's a really great location for many, many different uses. So just running through the history, we actually acquired it back in '91 from General Development Corporation for $895,000. And we rezoned it at that time in '92 to PD, which is a planned development. And that was for the Bachman Tract County Service Complex. Please don't ask me why it's called the Bachman Tract. I really don't know, because Bachman is at the other side of Veterans, and I have no idea why it's called the Bachman Tract, but that's what we know it as. In '94, we did a final plan approval for the following uses. So it was the bus parking, and fueling facilities, middle school, a high school, a fine arts facility, and a joint county school board library. And then again in '94, just after that PD approval was granted, it was transferred to the school board. The entire acreage was transferred to the school board. So then fast forward to 2007, and we actually worked together to transfer ownership of 40 acres, so that's those two pieces, back to the county in a land swap. If you need the details of that, I have details of what we swapped and how we swapped it. At that point, the land that the school board retained was valued at $4.36 million. I will tell you, since that time, we've had valuations on the middle section that's valued at around $6 million with commercial uses at the moment. Have to remember though that the PD is very specific to this parcel. It only allows for government facilities, so that's school board and government uses, and residential. It doesnn't allow for commercial. It's not something we can just flip and sell to the general public for a commercial development. It's very, very locked down in what it can be used for. Of course, that can always change if we wanted to change it and if the Board of County Commissioners wanted to change it. So I'm not saying that's a definite be-all, end-all, but that's where we are at the moment with that parcel. Just again, a little bit more background. Back in 2018, we split off that 8.1 acres for the use of utilities. And then we were given, as the county, the direction to explore using our section of the parcel for affordable housing. We went out to RFP with a whole RFP on what we were looking for in terms of 600 units of affordable housing. We only received one bid on that first go around, and it didn't meet the intent. It was more of a mixed use development, it didn't really meet the intent. So we went back out again in 2020 and we received a bid from a company called Palladium. What they were trying to do was do a 600 unit development that had an average AMI of 80%. So it was affordable, but it had workforce in there. It was a whole concept. And they were a private corporation. They were trying to do this without any state funding or tax credits or anything like that. And ultimately, they just couldn't make it work. They couldn't make the numbers work. So they backed out, and in 2024, they terminated the agreement for purchase and sale with the county. So that kind of leaves us where we are now, is what do we do with this land? What are the options there? So the current status, it has a future land use of high density residential. So that means it can have up to 15 units per acre on there. It does not have the density on there. We would have to put the density on there, but that's something that we can work through the county to do. It has a PD, as I said, with limited government uses. And the residential development is defined as that was in the RFP. So we would have to change this to make sure it was flexible for us all to get what we needed to do in terms of affordable and workforce housing. The density, base density is 0, but we have placed those 600 units on there. And we, like I said, we worked through the density issue if we were going to move forward with a project. It does not have direct water or sewer to the site. But when we were working with Palladium, we were looking at the cost of extending those. It's really not far. It was going to be about 1.2 million for water and sewers, very close. So it really, that isn't too much of a problem in getting those utilities to the site. Like I said, it's in a flood zone X. It's outside of the special flood hazard area. It's high and dry. In terms of emergency management, it's in an evacuation zone C, a yellow evacuation zone, which you all know is good for the county. Our most recent value estimates, in May 22, it was appraised at this is our section, was appraised at 8.4 million. That really isn't realistic because that included the density units, which are locked down to very specific uses. Our current estimate with no density is around 6.5 million, again, for our portion. So if you think yours is, 4 acres, 5 acres less, it's probably close to that, but it's very dependent on the uses. So I'm going to hand over to Carrie to talk you through the affordable housing piece and affordable housing versus workforce housing and that sort of thing, and then we'll wrap it up at the end and talk about some options.
Quick question before you move
Sure.
on. Was there a reason given by Palladium why they terminated the
They
agreement?
could not make the numbers work.
Gotcha.
So a 600 unit project of a mixture of affordable housing and workforce housing, and we were requiring them to do an average AMI of 80% without tax credits. It really was unaffordable for them to get the financing to complete the deal. So, and this was a company out of New Jersey that had done projects like this before, but the market changed and they just couldn't get the financing. So,
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, but did we not offer, there are incentives for companies to do that.
Yeah.
Were those not available to them at that time?
there were, so we actually output around $13 million worth of incentives, which included the land, it included impact fee credits, the density, and various other options and things to actually help try and make the deal work. Even with all of that, it wouldn't work. In my mind, it was too big. It was too big of a proposition. 600 units is a big development, as you know. And I don't think they could get anybody to finance that size of project.
And at the time, that was just your portion.
That was just our portion, yes.
Thanks. So typically you do see affordable housing projects that are around 100, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, because that's kind of the sweet spot for them to be able to make the numbers work. Tax credits are pretty critical. It's a little bit rare for us to see any kind of affordable housing happening without big government intervention, not just local, but on a state or a federal level. So this is essentially just to get you all, we talk about affordable housing all the time, but for clarity and for shared understanding, there are very specific definitions. So affordable housing, which we call it with a capital A, two main criteria. So it has to serve households where their income is 80% or below of area median income. So as a side note, we use HUD, we have to use HUD. And Housing and Urban Development come out with their formula of what the area median income is every year around April. So just as a side note, in 2024, the area median income, or AMI, for Charlotte County was $77,900. We shot up in 2025 to $94,800. So that's dead center of what they believe our household income is. So households earning 80% and below of area median income, they have to qualify there for affordable housing. But additionally, the housing cost must be no more than 30% of the household income. So it's really important that we understand that. They have to qualify, and then also the costs have to be lower. So essentially, affordable housing in our community is for renters, first-time home buyers, and it does have to meet a ton of guidelines. There are incentives available. We have local incentives. We created a program or a process called Charlotte Home, but there's also then options at the state level currently. And again, tax credits, which are highly competitive, but then also there are other opportunities like through CDBG or Home, and those are currently administered. Oh, sorry, I didn't know it was the time. Sorry. Those are currently administered through, right now for us, through the state until we're in entitlement community. So the target population can vary for affordable housing, but it does typically include people with disabilities, seniors, veterans, and folks that just have a lower income. Workforce housing is specific as well, 80% to 120% of the area median income. There are communities like Miami where they measure workforce housing and it does go up to 140% of area median income. For us, 120. Again, housing costs should be no more than 30% of the gross income. And then here's who that typically serves. And you can see, like you hear that with workforce housing, that's typically teachers, nurses, first responders, things like that. And then you would think of bus drivers, folks working in cafeterias, maybe as more affordable housing. There are incentives, however, currently we don't have local incentives for workforce housing. That's a board decision. We don't currently do that, but not to say that there aren't incentives that are available at a state level and also potentially a federal level, but that would be up to the developer. So the developer would seek that out. There are some opportunities through Live Local. We haven't had anybody do that yet here in Charlotte County, but that is potentially an opportunity. And then there are also some loan programs that the developer would seek out. Just to give you a little bit more information on our process that we have, Charlotte Home, it's an acronym because we love those. But it's a path for developers to get incentives because we want to make it very attractive for developers to build here with us in Charlotte County. So it's stuff like expedited permitting. We do waive impact fees. Not every community does that. And so the county commissioners have decided that that's a critical piece for us. Land donation is possible. We also have incentive density. And then other fees and utility connection, other fees like that can be covered. We do have a trust fund that Charlotte Home uses. And then there's a score. So developers then fill out an application. So for instance, the scores vary based on who the application is going to serve, who's going to live in the affordable housing. So you might see that someone who's creating 100 units versus 10, well, that's a higher score, right? Also, folks that are disabled and low income or veterans, those are special target populations. And so again, the scores might be different. Also, we look at financing. How heavily are you relying on our local subsidies? Or how solvent are you to do this project without us? So I created this, and nobody likes to be sort of shown an Excel spreadsheet and said, so here, now you can see this. But so let me just quickly explain what this is, because I think this might be helpful for you to know what we're talking about. So in the blue, what you can see is these are the income limits, all right? So this is, and here's the number down here, the median income of 94,800. So that's what these are all based off of, all right? So the income percentage and the way that affordable housing works is that you can see that you've got up to 140% of area median income, 120, 80, 50, and 30. That's how that's divided up. It's based on the size of the household. So if you were 80% affordable housing, so that's what we would consider here, a one-person household, that you would be earning $49,150 annually, or less. But you couldn't earn more than that. So you can see two-person household, three, and then four. So it gives you a sense of the overall household income and then what they could potentially qualify for. So housing can be targeted for 50% and below. That's considered very low income, and then this is extremely low income at 30%. So that gives you a sense of their income. Over here then in orange, that's the limit on the rent that could be charged. So bear in mind, it's 80% area median income here. The most that they can pay for a studio apartment is $1,228. Kind of a lot. But it gives you a sense then based on bedroom size and members of the household. So this whole thing is just designed to give you a snapshot. This top portion, the lighter shades, are affordable housing. Darker ones are workforce. So hopefully it just gives you a little bit of a snapshot of how that works.
Do we have any questions for Carrie before we move on?
Question?
I have a question. We can wait to the end probably though.
Right. So, as we've been talking through what to do with this parcel after the Palladium deal fell through, a couple of things came up. I mean, first of all, we've had multiple storms, which have created a need for us for a special needs shelter, a dedicated special needs shelter. And when we are looking at the size of that special needs shelter and the ideal location, the Bachman Tract is a good location for that special needs shelter for us, for county use. We're still working through what those blue skies uses would be because, I mean, obviously we're talking about a large building, so we need to make sure that it's utilized right the way through the year and not just if, never again, I hope, have a hurricane or a storm or a need for it. But we do have a significant need in this community for a special needs shelter. This project, the special needs shelter, is funded through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. We've already been awarded funding for design, and we hope once design is done, then we'll move into construction. So we're working through that. But that in itself presents some opportunities for us for the rest of the site, because what that allows us to do is do some master planning on that site, and I'll touch on that as we move forward. The other piece we've been thinking about is around Harry's conversation around affordable housing and recognizing a 600-unit affordable housing development, even with that mix, just doesn't work for our affordable housing developers. As Carrie said, their sweet spot is around 100. They're around 5 to 7 acre parcels, depending on stormwater need, things like that. So is there the ability to break maybe our portion of the site up into smaller pods and give that to affordable housing developers to target those low and very low income properties, maybe targeted to seniors, maybe targeted to veterans, disabilities, and work in conjunction with the home program. And then as we were talking through the options around this with our board said, well, you know, we've heard maybe the school board is interested in doing some workforce housing, so is there a way to partner? Is there a way for us to look at this entire parcel as a single parcel from the perspective of all the stormwater and the circulation of utilities and all the stuff that you need to do on a parcel, and help get this parcel to a place where it's ready for you to work on an affordable housing project or a workforce housing project, whatever makes sense for you. This certainly is not the county saying you shall do this. This is how can we partner together to really make it work and make it a usable parcel for our community, for our residents, and for those people that want to live and work in this community. So what I'm looking for, hopefully for feedback from you today, is around our next steps. I've been tasked with bringing this conversation back to our Board of County Commissioners for them to weigh in and hear what you all have to say. And then maybe we can talk about formalising a working group or something like that to envision what this project looks like and maybe move that master planning initial master planning piece forward. Look at, how do we fund that? We have got grant funds out there. We're applying for CDBG DR funds for this parcel, specifically with stormwater improvements. stormwater is expensive. So we're trying to pull some grant funding together to really make this parcel a usable parcel and get it into the place that it needs to be. So that's really all I have. I'm looking for ideas, thoughts, comments, maybe some consensus from you so I can take this back to my board and see where we go from here.
So, all right, so first question, what workforce housing do we currently have in Charlotte County?
We don't.
Okay. How many people would be eligible for workforce housing in Charlotte County?
So based on what we have seen there.
Yeah.
So it's not just about how many people in the community would be eligible, it's also about how many people in the community want to live there.
Okay.
So one thing that you might think about is maybe asking your staff who would be interested in this, because as I was talking with Angela Hogan, she's the CEO of the Gulf Coast Partnership, and several years ago, we put together a housing study. One of the things that happened as a precursor to that is she did a survey of all of your staff, all of the Charlotte County Public Schools workers that, that took the time to answer. And amongst the teachers, not a ton of interests in living in an apartment at the time. I'm gonna say that was probably 6, maybe 7 years ago though. So I don't know. And it's also who bothered to, do it. They wanted single family homes. But there was more interest for folks that were maybe, support staff. So I don't know in terms of your team, but in terms of the community at large, yes, we have a large number of folks that would qualify. But there aren't currently incentives for us locally for workforce housing, and so I don't really have that readily available because we do have so much need for affordable. We are behind by thousands of units.
What's the wait list for affordable housing right now, do we know? Maybe a guesstimate?
Depends. Punta Gorda Housing Authority has about a 3-year, 2 to 3 year waiting list on their units. Some of the other developers, Presbyterian Homes lost 120 units, so their waiting list is probably 3 to 5.
And we should introduce, this is Holly.
Sorry.
She's our Housing Division Senior Manager.
Yes. She's
What-
the one.
So
So
go ahead, Chuck.
speaking of affordable housing, the project on Loveland, what's the capacity of that once it's completely built out?
So that's not affordable housing.
No.
So, no, there is the initial first phase of that was affordable
Oh, I
housing.
got you.
But then the developers that owned the whole parcel, they sold that second section, and that was built as apartments, but they're not affordable. So in that, the existing, the Jacaranda Place, they're at capacity.
Yes, with a waiting list.
Are we limited to apartment concepts, or would townhouse or something along those lines be available if it would be more appealing
You
to our
could,
workforce?
you could. I mean, really, this is about a conversation. What meets your needs? What is something that would be palatable to your employees if that's where you're going? And how can we make that happen?
And is there any chance that a preferential assignment could be made for district employees and or first responders?
That would be however we developed an MOU or developed the PD, absolutely we can do that. We don't have that currently in Charlotte County, but there are models that have that.
I was referring to one I reviewed in Monroe County that had something along those
Yes,
lines.
yes.
So there's some state statute that addresses school board property and providing that property for critical need personnel. There's 2 different statutes. One has to do with disposing of real property. The other one has to do with maybe donating it, which I would not be in favor of. I'm more interested in the workforce housing. I know when Dr. McElroy has come to us, and every year we do a presentation on what our recruitment looks like. And I think what's interesting about the survey is you were surveying existing people who already have places to live. But we often have had the situation where we extend job offers to potential teachers, and then they come here and they find out there's no place they can afford to live, and they decline the offer. I guess the question that I would have for you, Carrie, is working with the county commissioners, they want affordable housing based on what you're telling me, because that's what they offer incentives for. We want workforce housing. If we sectioned out a parcel that had some county land, some school board land, that was that mix of workforce and affordable, smaller than what Palladium was looking at, would that make it more attractive to a developer to come knowing, because it's like they couldn't make the numbers work with the affordable, but if they knew that there was some workforce in there, does that make it easier for the developer to make the numbers work?
So we do, we like it when they do mixed income projects. The issue with affordable housing and building it is one thing. So on average, it takes between 7 to 12 years to get an affordable housing project fully funded, fully up, ready to go for people to move in. It's extraordinarily complicated to do it. But the issue isn't really the building, it's maintaining its affordability. So because people are paying significantly less per month for rent, so it's very difficult to keep these buildings in good shape and to keep, right? So it's the ongoing maintenance of that. So what we have found is projects where it's mixes. So it's people that are just paying market rate for an apartment versus you're next door to someone it's 50% and you're 80% and you're 140, whatever that is. But that's up to the developer to determine. So that's what, with the Palladium, their offer was to do an average affordability. So it wasn't that everybody was 80%. We like that mix. It makes it more viable, to be honest with you. But if you're asking if there is a path in terms of workforce incentives, that's a question for the board.
But just to tag on a little bit, I think that's an interesting concept in maybe going out for a Palladium-like RFP, but a smaller amount of land that maybe crosses the county and the school board property, and think of it from that perspective and see if we can get some interest. We don't know who's out there. The market is consistently changing. So there may be an interest if we develop something like that to go out and just see what's out there.
That's a good point.
Do you know how many acres Murdoch Circle Apartments are on?
I don't.
How big that tract is, just so I can kind of get a visual.
I don't. I would guess 5 to 7, but I don't know.
And we're talking lofty.
A lot more than that, but I think that's on more than 5 to 7 acres because
Yeah, that is no more than 15 units per acre because that's the limit in that area of Charlotte County at that time. Under the Live Local Act, there's potential to go up to 65 units per acre. That's very, very dense. It's very high. You need to go up for that, and for that area of town, probably not the most appropriate land use there. But there is the ability to be a little bit more flexible there under the Live Local Act.
Murdoch Village, by the way, it's no longer affordable. So the 20-year term, so that's the other issue is when public funds are invested, there has to be a term of affordability. And so obviously many developers go, yeah, we're gonna do this for 20 years and then we can charge whatever we want, right? So now the move with Florida Housing and HUD is, we need longer than that, right? So there's a push for 50 years or for perpetuity, which is, for instance, the Verandas, the newest Verandas 3 right there on Airport and Cooper, because that is the Housing Authority's property. That's affordable in perpetuity, which is incredibly valuable, right? And so we recognize that, and so they get high scores then when they're going to apply for incentives.
interesting
And if you're
concept.
looking for comparability, that's on about 7 acres, and I believe it's a 77, 80 in that neighborhood, number of units.
Well, from my perspective, I guess there's a couple things. Number one, we know that we need the housing, not just for teachers, but the food service workers, the custodians, the paraprofessionals, our bus drivers. We know that we have surplus land. I definitely am in favor of putting together some sort of a work group where we can cooperate with the commissioners. And particularly to go out to those developers, you know who the developers are that do this kind of work, and say to them, what terms do you need to make this attractive? And then coming back to us and seeing if those terms are palatable to move forward.
I have a couple questions, and I'm in favor of looking at workforce housing, but going back to the special needs shelter, just out of curiosity, what would what are you looking at capacity-wise, and would that be used for any other reason, for recreation and so on?
It's a nice segue. So that building will be 65,000 square feet. That is the size that's needed for our Charlotte County's special needs population, so that's what we're designing it to. We are working through those blue sky uses and what it could be. We've talked about training center, we've talked about, you know, what departments can we deploy into that building that can leave when we need to use it as a special needs shelter, because obviously it can't be a critical department that's in there. But I also think there's maybe opportunity for partnership there as well, in terms of, is there anything, and you know, I see Mark looking at me there, I'm just kind of throwing this out there now. But is there anything that, you know, we can partner on that facility with as well? Are there any uses that the school board would have
The
that?
thing that comes to mind, especially if you're gonna be building workforce and affordable housing, would be early childcare. And I hear that conversation frequently. In fact, I think EDO recently was holding some meetings about that as another barrier I know that has come up for us with recruiting employees, is not having affordable childcare. And that would be one of those things, if you had a child care center, would not be occupied during a storm.
Storm, yeah. Yeah, that's a good, that's not one that was on our list, so we can add that.
I would presume that with a 7 to 12-year concept for build-out, that 65,000 square feet will still be viable 12 years from now with our growth.
Yes, and that concept for build out for that facility will be a lot quicker, assuming we get the funding. You know, it's HMGP funding, which is federally funded. We are assuming that we're going to get the funding on that. But we are about ready to go into design on that facility.
Shelter. On the building that regardless.
Yes, yes.
Say that again?
You can build a shelter here regardless of anything else.
Where on your tract are you gonna be building the shelter?
So the thought is, let me get back to that slide. The thought is to put it somewhere up around here, at the moment, kind of here. And then that would leave the rest of the parcels of whatever housing concept. Because if we put it in the middle here, then you're thinking, okay, you're splitting up the parcel. So keep it out of the way. It's going to have a lot of parking around it and things like that. We have to have those parking requirements. But it does give us the ability to master plan the stormwater design and the utility design that can cover the entire site.
The second question I have is, I think it was last year, there was conversation about either affordable housing or workforce housing on a track right off of 41 towards, it's behind that little power substation, there's a tract of land.
Oh, yes.
So what's the story with that? Is that developed into anything, or?
No, that was a private application, a private development. We have not heard anything from that developer.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's the privately owned.
Yeah, that's privately owned.
They haven't really figured out what they're gonna do.
Yeah, that was one of the concepts that they presented on that one. They came with multiple different concepts, but we just haven't heard anything else.
And the last question, has anyone approached you about commercial use? And I know there's obviously hoops to jump through. Is there any interest from commercial development?
We have not advertised this for commercial use or had those conversations, but that very first application that we got in for the RFP back in 2018, 2019, that was more of a mixed use concept, so it did have a commercial component to it. There'd obviously have to be a decision made by you and our board to change that PD to allow commercial on that site. And then that changes our conversation completely, I think.
Do you think having a commercial part of it makes it more palatable to a developer to come in?
I don't think so, not from the developers that we'd be looking for that lower income and that workforce housing. They don't tend to want to do that vertical mixed use. I'll give you an example. We have entitlements on the Promenades Mall for a vertical mixed use product, and they can't move that at all at the moment. They're still trying, but you know that those entitlements are sat there and they can't find anybody to do it.
I have another question. With all of the families that will be living in this area, what about transportation? There on Veterans, that area is busy, and those cars, I mean, I know what the speed limit is, but I know that it's not
followed.
not followed. No, it's not followed. And there's a lot of accidents on veterans. So is that something that they're would be thinking about as well?
Yeah, so as we go through the site design phase, we look at where the entrances are to that property, on Veterans, on Hillsborough to the north as well, which obviously is a much quieter road. And then what that circulation within the property looks like. We get traffic counts and we get, information for the use. Does it warrant a traffic light? That type of thing. What does it warrant at that site to make it safe?
Is Hillsborough, is that on the border of Sarasota County?
It is, yes.
Pretty much right, that's it.
It's one
Yes.
side and the other.
Yep, center line, we own half of it,
I mean, that is the point.
yes.
Well, I like the idea, obviously, like I said, workforce housing, but I like the idea of the special needs shelter also. If there was a way we could combine the two, I would be interested in hearing more about that conversation.
The shelter is gonna be heard from strengths too.
Oh, yes,
All the
absolutely.
things like the backdrop, building down.
Yes, it has to be. It also has to have specific requirements to function as a special needs shelter because of the vulnerability of the population that's in there. And it would have a generator on there as well.
There are also some constraints in terms of the blue sky use based on the grant funding too, so it would all have to fit all the
Yeah.
boxes.
And grant funding would help with site prep and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, that's our thoughts
Some of
is,
the
let's
utilities.
use as much grant funding as we can. As I mentioned, we've also applied, we're going through application for CDBG DR funding at the moment through the state. So we have applied for funding specifically to do this, the stormwater infrastructure, the construction of stormwater for this site. So we hope we can get that funding as well.
A couple of things. I heard that there was not quite an appetite to donate land as an incentive. You own land, that is an incentive. We're looking at the possibility of 99-year ground leases for future development as opposed to land donation and the legal implications and value in that. So that's another potential where you're not giving up your asset, but you are ensuring that it's there in use for long-term affordability or affordability to your workforce. I would also add that the sheriff has a team of folks who are very, very interested in working with the county toward workforce housing dedicated to their staff. So there may be an opportunity to partner on the workforce units and the county's affordable units in this place, that it's really is a mixed income combined development. And there are Live Local Act incentives for workforce housing. There are Live Local Act funds that will be put out through request for application for those 80 to 120 units. So there are potential funding opportunities for units. And there are also funds for mixed use. So if there was in the master planning of this site an appetite for joint effort with the sheriff's office and the county on a mixed income and a mixed use at that site, those are all possibilities that they would take developers with an experience, a level of experience and expertise in all of those state Sadowski opportunities and Live Local opportunities and so I mean, I think there is a real opportunity here.
I have a question. As we continue to develop and build our aviation program and our advanced manufacturing program for adults, would there be opportunities for potential students coming from out of county, out of state to live in this environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really what do we want it to be, and let's write it the way that we want it to be. And if that's a need, if that's something that you identify, which absolutely, we don't have any space for the students around here. We just have a fellow that's just started working for the county. He managed to find somewhere in Northport that's affordable for him. So, I think absolutely we can certainly explore what that looks like. The only thing I caution is, the more flexible we make this, the more complicated it becomes. So we have to really dial in on what are those real hot button needs, and let's try and build something that suits those needs.
The biggest challenge seems to be for the developers is finding a developer that this makes sense for them.
Yeah,
The building and the holding, keeping it, so those are the two pieces, yeah.
And we
Okay.
really did think we found that developer in Palladium, and we had a lot of conversation. We did a couple of modifications just to try and keep it moving, and ultimately, without using that state funding and that federal funding, they just could not make it work.
Without tax credits, and we understand why they didn't
Yeah.
wanna do it, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's what makes these work.
I will say, we had 5 developers who, with Florida experience in our affordable and workforce housing industry, which is unique. Florida's affordable housing industry is unique in the way it's funded. But they were at the table and willing to participate with us in a proposed technical assistance grant that we were seeking with NACO for the use of county-owned land for affordable housing. And they have a variety of experience, but they all had an interest in helping in whatever way they could, the county consider how to move forward with this diamond in the rough, this parcel that any one of them would love to bid on, to put in a 70 to 100 unit with Florida housing dollars in it to subsidize that. And, so there are developers here, right here, not out of state, here, that know our multifamily programs and how to tap into those tax credits and tax incentives.
This is a very hot topic right now. I mean, Tampa Bay Times just had an article on it this week. Our newspaper just came out with one in Sarasota and Brighton and Manatee County. And it revolves around the live local and the incentives.
Yes. Yeah. This is a challenge. It's not just a challenge for us, for Charlotte County. It's a nationwide, it's a worldwide challenge. The affordability of housing, and we don't see it softening. I mean, it's softening a little bit, but we don't see housing prices for rentals coming down that much.
So we might see a short-term dip, but it'll eventually crawl right back up there.
Exactly. Like Colleen said, this parcel to me, I agree, it's a diamond in the rough. It's something that we have an opportunity to do something really creative with that really meets our needs.
Anything else? Thank you, ladies.
I have one
Oh, I'm
thing,
sorry.
not on this subject though, but just because we all received an email from the chair of CAB about advocacy for community services block grant.
I'm glad you guys are here because we can speak
'Cause
to
you're
that
on
too.
that.
Yes,
You're
yes,
the
but I'll
person.
let,
Well, my question is, when I got this letter is, I'm unclear exactly what she's asking us to do.
So I believe that the intention was if there's any advocacy that you can do in terms of writing a letter or to your lobbyists or to your folks to be able to say, hey, this matters. But honestly, it's probably just to our elected officials to say, hey,
Local or federal?
I would say federal. Those are the ones that are making that decision. So, yeah, I think that was the idea, was please advocate to keep these anti-poverty programs that really, and in many communities, there's a huge relationship, funding and structural with Head Start. But honestly, these are programs that provide genuine, we pay electric bills, we pay rent, we pay mortgage with these funding, but it is a concerted effort with the CAB. It's a tripartite board that advocates in a large sense for low-income individuals and moving them through self-sufficiency. And it's a massive effort. And
Have they been cut,
Yeah,
have these
that's-
two programs
yes.
been cut from the budget?
so CAB oversees these two programs, so CAB will go away essentially if we do
Yes.
not have these two programs. So when you look at the numbers that were in there, it's millions of dollars that service our community that is currently not being funded in the federal budget. So
Yes.
the board had kind of talked about, and Commissioner DeSeo kind of led the conversation about, well, maybe the county commission will advocate, and if we have any ability to advocate. at
Yeah,
the
I think the
federal
ask
level.
is, as a school board, if you so wish, to say to elected officials, reinstate this program.
Mhm.
These funding, avenues matter to our community.
To our
There's a
families,
huge gap. If your parents, your students are benefiting from these programs, and so it matters that they get that kind of help. So that was the request.
Looks like it's $4 million over 4 years, so about $1 million a year,
Yeah, for millions of dollars over the last few years.
4 years.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
It's a lot of money, however you look at it.
yes, it's done a lot of good in our community for our families.
Anything, before we move on to anything else, I just want to make sure we're clear on, Kim mentioned we're not interested in the outright donation of the property, but maybe looking at either sale, or she had mentioned some kind of ground lease or something, and I don't know if that's legal at this point, but I just wanna make sure we're on the same page with that.
I certainly don't think we're in a position to be donating a property of that value. I don't know that there's, we can do that, we should do that for our stakeholders. We understand the concerns for the community, but I agree with Ms. Amatri. I'm not comfortable with a donation. Obviously, if we can utilize it for the district and the benefit of the district somehow, in either capacity, I prefer not to sell, I prefer workforce housing to go on it. But if not, then a sale that we can utilize for other sort of resources.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that the Board of Commissioners are clear on that, knowing what what they have to go into with.
Absolutely. So what I'll do moving forward is I'll schedule an item for our Board of County Commissioners. I'll update them on this discussion. And what I'll recommend is putting together a work group so we can start fleshing out some of these details. This is going to take some time. Anything we do with land use takes time. So it's not going to be a usually quick process, but let's have that conversation. Whoever is the best people to have those conversations around the table, and let's just see what we can do. And obviously anything will be brought back to you, brought back to our board, before we took any action for your approval, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so
as well.
much. Thank you.
For the workforce, do you want us to be on that committee? Do you want to be on the committee? So I think that's kind of what Claire was asking as far as that goes.
The work group goes?
Yes, the work group.
I would think we would want at least one board member in y'all,
Okay.
I would think.
Yes.
We could add it to the list of responsibilities, if
Great.
that's appropriate for you guys, yeah?
Perfect. And then the second piece, do you want me to work with Carrie on a housing study? We said it's 6 to 7 years old. Is that
So
something?
we will have another housing study coming with, as we are applying for and qualifying to be an entitlement community. There is a consolidated plan with the Community Development Block Grant, and that is all coming within the next year. We'll loop you all in on that, but that's a prerequisite that HUD says, okay, give us a housing study, tell us about your community, what's going on, so it's already in the works. So we'll just make sure that we're looped in on it. But again, that will take time.
I would hope you could add what Ms. Amatri pointed out, if you could reach out to any of prospective employees, either through us and the sheriff's department and first responders as well, if there's some way to do that. I don't know that you can, how you do.
Okay, because I was kind of saying also developers, and you have the contacts with some of these developers and finding out
We do.
what do we need to do here to
We
make
can do
this.
that, and I think, but the point is well taken on both ends. What do your staff want, what do the sheriff's office want in terms of essential, and then we can also reach out to developers. More information, the better.
We have a representative on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee from the Sheriff's Office, Terry Cochran, and he is a fierce advocate for workforce. And every opportunity he gets, he is banging the drum for workforce housing incentives and ensures that the AHAC continues to recommend to the board to consider expanding their incentives to incorporate workforce units, So that's a discussion that we have all the time. And it's a discussion that they will continue to have. And perhaps this is a catalyst for an opportunity with the board to make some concessions for a specific group of units for a specific purpose, I mean, there's opportunity for dialogue and flexibility and a willingness, I think, to move forward with it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Instructional framework, okay. So I'm back there. Ready? Come on forward, we're ready. I'm gonna step out for a minute today. I have a call I have to make at 10:20.
You're just taking a step out too, so maybe you want to take like a 5-minute?
Okay, you wanna do 5 minutes?
Yeah, okay, absolutely. I don't want you to miss our presentation.
I wouldn't miss all. I just gotta make this short call. Trying to get a bit of
Present to you first and foremost, what a great day yesterday. We were out and about, the entire MCO was out and about, and I hit 5 schools myself, and positivity all around, teachers, admin, students, very organized. Started my day off at Port Charlotte High School in the morning and sat up there with James, and they just had some really great systems that they were implementing day one. So it was great to see, and we'll continue with that. And today is actually day 2, which is at the middle school and high school level, is this suspended curriculum day, where they're actually meeting with the 6th graders at the middle school level to kind of say, here's our expectations for what you're going to do at our middle schools. And then at the high schools, they're going to meet with the 9th graders today and talk about their expectations. So we're excited about that. And one step further, Port Charlotte's actually meeting with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th over the next 4 days so that James can get in front of all of those groups. So really, really good stuff there. So as we make our journey through the Department of Learning, we're going to share with you today some of the summer things that we did relative to the instructional framework that really we feel will pay dividends and kind of make sense, hopefully. And if you have questions at the end, obviously. But the first thing we want to talk about is the great thing about this year. It's a lot of continuation from last year. So we have a lot of things that we implemented last year that now we don't have to implement this year, and we just move forward. So when teachers come back, they already know they're going to be coached. That's not a new concept to them. But let's go through them. So first and foremost, we have standards-based planning with rigor, and Lisa's really going to get into what we did with that on the curriculum side this year. We have CNI's data review with coaches and teachers. That's something we've been doing forever. But what we're adding this year when I talk to the CNIs is we're going to talk about data-informed strategies, not just data-informed. Okay, so for instance, if I give Bob a list of kids and I say, here's your reading scores and here's the likelihood that they pass a test, right? I'm just giving you data. So how a teacher processes that can be interesting, right? They could say, well, I got a bunch of kids that I can't pass a test, so do I have to work as hard? So what we're charging our CNIs with doing is to say, here's the data of your students. Now, what strategies do we need to use so that these kids can pass the test versus just thinking that they won't pass a test based on fast results? So more of a push-in model to really helping the teachers understand the strategies that they may need in their classrooms for kids that may be a level 1 or a level 2 and they have to take an EOC. So that's one of the newer things we're doing. Obviously, we have the school-based coaches, positive feedback all around from all of the principals to the point that they realized that maybe they had hired the wrong person for that job. So they put them back in the classroom and hired someone else. So I think they truly understand where we're going with that. We have the teacher collaboration, the PLCs, and the planning, and what we did this year for them. You'll probably talk about this, so I'm not trying to take her thunder, but we gave them a form to use with it, so it was pretty uniform. Now, so the pieces, so they understand that there should be a goal when they come into the meeting, and the goal should be wrapped around student achievement at the individual student level and all those things. So we provided that, the template for them. We have obviously the professional learning opportunities, and one thing that we're taking on right now is we're going to ask, so what we'll get with early release days is we'll get a principal that says, oh, I want a CNI at my early release day to do my PD. Well, then that CNI can't be used at any other school. So what we're going to attempt it this year is we're going to have our CNIs produce a video of a professional learning where the facilitator is the admin team with the teachers, and they can show it to multiple schools. And what we'll do is we'll just have a library that says, here are the trainings that we offer if you're interested in strategies, content, whatever. Here it is. You need to be the facilitator. And then we'll put together the video that allows them to utilize that CNI across the board versus just at one school. So we'll keep you informed as we go through with that project. We have the Center for Model Schools coaching on there. We have 86 days of coaching this year. And then we have 10 days, which is new, with curriculum review and alignment. And Lisa's gonna get into that a little bit more and how we're utilizing them to make sure that our curriculum and our alignment is rigorous. And making sure that we have good pacing guides there and everything else. We're gonna do an elementary learning walk with principals that Sheila's going to lead, which is a natural thing as we look at model schools. We're not gonna have model schools forever. So as we transition into utilizing both Matt and Sheila, with that, what does that look like? Now, what Sheila's gonna do administratively is look at some other components, not just what model schools would look at, right? Because model schools still gonna work with principals, but they're looking at rigor and engagement, relevance, all those things. Sheila's gonna look at the bigger picture of what else a principal can look at within the classroom. So we'll keep you informed on that. And then the last thing is the data chats. And I'm really gonna dive deep into this at the next school board workshop, where we talk about what we're doing with data chats this year, which is completely different than what we did last year. We'll have a couple of them, and we're really excited about that. So I'm not gonna give away my secrets yet, so that's where we're at. Once again, today we're here to talk about the instructional framework. The instructional framework in the DSP is wrapped around 6 different areas. But today, we're gonna focus on the curriculum area and the importance of the curriculum that our students have in front of them. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to share all the work we've done. As Bob mentioned, this is a continuation. You'll see on some of my slides that it says new. Here are some things that are new. But please keep in mind there are new resources or things that we've done as a team to support what we already have in place. It really will help us hopefully build cohesion, consistency across the district is what we're looking at. I think a big theme for this work is that the equitable learning experience for all of our students. So it shouldn't matter if I'm a third grade at Deep Creek, I'm a third grader in another building, we want that same learning experience across the district. So in May, I met with the CNIs for a 4-day retreat, or I would say work session. Retreat sounds a little bit more positive, right? So we worked on 2 big items. One was creating the taxonomy levels to ensure that rigorous instruction. On the next slide, I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. But basically, all of K-12, they each went through every grade level standard to say, you know, is this a retrieval? Like what level of thinking, what does it require of our students? Is it retrieval? Is it comprehension? Is it analysis? So those are set across the district. So as teachers work through their proficiency scales, we've already identified that taxonomy level because we don't want different teachers saying, well, I think this is recall and I think it's comprehension. So it kind of keeps it the same for everyone. And then the implementation guidance documents, I will also show you a sample of those. K-12, it is a support that shows, identifies everything a teacher needs in terms of a material. So it lays out the goals, rules, monitoring plan, how they should be assessing it. So I'll talk more about that. In June, we brought together, I think, 4 different content areas, mostly secondary, to do our summer curriculum work. We don't always update our pacing guides and assessments, but if we see changes that need to be done, then we make sure we spend about a week or 2 in June through all the different subject areas, science being the huge area this year where we had to do everything with a new adoption. And then this month for secondary, they just wrapped up last week in the pre-planning week, going around to each middle and high school and met with each of the departments and just do their welcome back. They talk about their curriculum documents, pacing guides, assessments. They get to know some of the new teachers as well. So here's an example. I pulled 2nd grade ELA for you. So this is in the curriculum documents for all the grade levels. So they can go right to a standard and it tells them the taxonomy level. So we have those available K-12 and they're already embedded with any of the materials we had before. A couple other new things, and I'll talk more about this one on the next slide. We made a Google site for principals. We have a lot of different documents, so we wanted a one-stop shop where they could find all of these resources. And so I took a screenshot. You can click on that link, but really to help them find anything curriculum related. The biggest piece for that was we created for each subject area administrator look-fors. Either the company works with us, but as a principal, when I'm going into the classroom, what are the high-level things I need to be looking for Tier 1 instruction? You think of an elementary principal, they're looking at all 4 subject areas, so that's a heavy lift. So we try to support by giving them the key points of what they're looking for instruction. Our instructional materials list, we're really excited about that, so I'll talk about that in the next slide. So here's just a snapshot. So when they go to the Google site, this is everything that's available to them. It's very similar to our instructional framework website, but when they click up here at the top, it will give them all of their look for documents. Most of them are 1 to 2 pages. Anything assessment related or course request or SERP, and Bob was mentioning the professional learning communities, they can go right here and every document they need is in one place. So the principals were excited. We rolled that out at DLT, so they appreciated having everything in one place. Here's our instructional material list. So we have something similar on the website that just says, here are our textbooks that have been board adopted. What we wanted to do was dig deeper. So in the first tab, it's here are all of our core resources. What should we expect to see in Tier 1 instruction being utilized? We went through, we have the publisher, we have the implementation guidance document, and then who the district contact is. This is obviously on the first page, pretty lengthy. It's our core. This is what we should be seeing the most of that's aligned to your standards. Over on the second tab, we did 2 parts to that. What are the approved supplemental resources that are either district purchased, so we've purchased to help out in certain areas because we know we have gaps with some of our core. And then we worked as a CNI team to make a list of all of the other resources that we have vetted that we think have high effect size, have ESSA ratings, so that schools, as they look to purchase additional supplementals, should look here first to see. And then if it's not on there, there is a system in place where they can request, but they also answer questions for us like, what does this resource do that your core doesn't? Because we want to prevent all of the different moving pieces and parts in a classroom and really focus on that solid Tier 1. And, you know, maybe why, if they're missing a piece in the core material that they just don't know about. So we're trying to really help guide them when they're selecting their instructional materials. And then the last tab is what are the approved interventions? So when we really start thinking about those Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports, we've gone through every subject area. What are those resources that, again, our team, we worked with Rebecca in Student Services, what are those resources that we have vetted, that we know have a high effect size, that we really want to see being used in our schools? So this is a lot right here. So do you have any questions so far?
I think the whole goal of that is as we use data to inform our decisions, if teachers are using multiple supplements within the classroom, it's impossible for us to judge what worked and what didn't work. So with the expertise of the state and the expertise of the CNIs and the Department of Learning, along with the principals and the teachers, because there is a part that they can ask to have a supplement in their room, but they do have to answer questions. The other thing we really want to identify, if more than one school is asking for a resource to fill a need that is at multiple schools, then really we need to do a better job of providing that resource. What is it and how do they get it? So the ease of use is important too. Teachers don't have a lot of time, right? They plan, they do what they have to do, so principals as well. So we're making this very easy to use and answer their questions. But again, if we're gonna spend $2 to $3 million on textbooks, then we're gonna want the textbook used as the main source of Tier 1 instruction, because it does live up to the standards, because we buy them through the state, we know that they've met certain guidelines.
Glad you mentioned that, but also the approved interventions, making sure that the interventions that they use are approved and are appropriate, so.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
And, you know, this helps everyone, but thinking of our new teachers coming in, it's a one-stop shop for them where they can go, here are my resources, I can click right on the implementation guide, which is a good segue in. So if you click on those links, every document looks the same. So we outline, I showed you, this is social studies, K-5. It tells them like, why are we using the resource? What's our monitoring plan? What are the program components? This is a big piece for curriculum. I walk into a classroom as a new teacher. What should I expect to have? Consumables, a teacher edition. Do I have any other things that go with my curriculum? It's all laid out right here. What are the expectations? If it's an online platform and it says students should be on there 45 minutes per week, for example, that would be outlined under the expectation. What grade level should be using it? Are we using it for Tier 1? Is it Tier 2, Tier 3? So we have these for both core and supplemental that's been purchased by the district. What I'm also going to do is work with, I lead the AP and APC meetings. I'm going to work with them that when they buy things at the school level, what monitoring plan do they also have in place at the school site? Because myself and the CNIs aren't as involved with those materials. The next section talks about what are our suggestions or recommendations for assessment and grading? And then any professional learning opportunities. If the company send us a Padlet of resources, we're going to be doing FRACs this year with third grade. They have some different competitions where classes can compete against different schools. So anything that's professional learning or things like that the company puts out, we'll put in there. And then last, who can they contact for support? And we put from the building to the district level to the tech resources with the company. If they're having a problem with a digital platform, we can't always fix that because it could be a platform issue, but they can go right here and it gives them everything they need. And they have that for every resource that they have. So this was a huge undertaking, but it was very helpful in making sure that everybody's working from the same document so we all have a similar understanding. So textbook adoption for this year, we will be reviewing K-12 ELA. We will begin in September calling for committee members to review, and we will run our process very similar to science. Our timeline is very similar. We moved it up from like a month earlier from the year before. So we're excited to take a look at our K-12 ELA resources. This is year one of implementation for science. We just had a great PL day. We did year rounds July 11th, I think, and then everyone else was August 7th. So we had science teachers and science PL, and then we had all of our other content areas or with the CNIs or other trainers. The day went really well. So middle school is transitioning to comprehensive science this year. Andy Green is our new science CNI, so she has been working very closely. It's been a busy summer for her. I don't know how much she really did more while she was off as we transition here, but we have a good plan in place for the middle school over the next 3 years because we will have some gaps because we're transitioning from ELP to comprehensive, but we have a whole table for the schools so they know where those gaps are. And then the big piece for elementary, after we get through first semester, starting in January, we will begin a review process for elementary interventions for math and ELA. So we did very similar to what we did. I'll talk about it on the next slide. For secondary, we will look at really those intensive reading students that need some additional support or math, that have some math deficiencies. We're really going to look and try to have the same intervention district-wide. Right now we have some different interventions happening in the schools, but we want to kind of bring that in just like we did for secondary. So that will be another big piece for this year. So secondary intensive reading, they are off and running. They have everything set up for Language Live at the middle school and Lexia at the high schools. This is the first time in quite a while, I believe, that we've had the same intervention across our secondary schools for intensive reading. We brought together that group last year. They vetted, met with the vendors just like we do for textbook adoption, and then this is where we landed. We did have the group of teachers come in June and work with Heather Garcia, and they worked on their implementation plan, went through the resources, and then all the teachers were just trained on August 7th. So we're very excited to see this in play. One of the things I was actually just talking to Bob about, what we're hoping to do is we adopt. So every year we adopt something new. With me, this science being my first true adoption, every quarter we're going to survey the teachers. What's going well? What are your barriers? What suggestions do you have for pacing? What are some gaps you're noticing? So then we can compile that all year long, and then when teachers come back in June to do that summer curriculum work, we can give them all that feedback, and then my team will review it, all throughout the year. And if there's something we can fix during the year after quarter one, then we'll obviously do that. But that will be an exciting piece that'll really help us see how implementation's going. So CNI support, Bob was talking about this a little bit. We shared this with principals too. Not a lot is changing here. This is what they've done in the past, but we're really asking them to spend 3 to 4 days a week in the schools, majority of their time. It could be walkthroughs, they can be meeting with coaches. Bob mentioned the PLC time. Sometimes they go to department meetings. They might be helping a teacher that just really needs to dig in with their curriculum. The PLC time, as he mentioned earlier, you'll know it was called collaborative planning last year. Some of the feedback that we got from principals and coaches is that when we hear collaborative planning, a lot of times people thought that they were always going to leave with a product. Like, we're coming together, we're planning, and we're leaving with something. And so we really had to shift that, because professional learning communities can be any of those things. Are we doing a data dive? Are we looking at creating an assessment or a formative or summative assessment for our next unit? So when the teachers are together, it can be lots of different things. So the template that we put together as our DSP team kind of guides what those meetings should look like. Are you talking about curriculum? Are you talking about instruction today? Are you talking about assessment? And so we gave a very, I would say, broad template, but specific questions for how that time should be utilized. And then our assessments. So you've probably heard our district required interims and our DFAs, which are our district formative assessments. What I've realized over the last 2 years being in this position, some of our subjects had formative assessments that we had created at the district level, and some had summative. So we decided to make it easier. It's very confusing. We're calling them district common assessments, because it's a common assessment, could be formative, could be summative, but all teachers will be giving that assessment throughout the year. We've given them that assessment guidance document that outlines when those assessments are given. That will help us monitor Tier 1 instruction, so we can see how are students responding, and we'll compare that data across the district. So that's all in there, and that's a small change for this year. And then, similar to how we do textbook and intensive reading, we're going to pull together a testing committee to start looking at what other testing platforms, when we are giving those district-wide assessments. Right now we're using Mastery Connect. We're not sure how long we'll continue with Mastery Connect, so we want to just know what else is out there. So this is more of a proactive measure, so that we've researched, we've looked at other platforms. We're part of a Florida FIDA testing group that they have shared what other districts are using. So we have a starting place of about 8 other platforms that we can vet and kind of look at. So that will happen probably the second half of this year. And last is our curriculum audit review. We have great pacing guides and curriculum apps already established for our teachers. One of the things that we're looking at is just ensuring, as Bob mentioned, do we have cohesion K-12? Do our curriculum maps require the same things from K-12? Do some people have essential questions? Do some people have academic vocabulary? So I put on here, we'll be working with Glenn from Model Schools. He will be taking a look at, do we have priority standards identified? Do we have we unlocked the standards so everybody understands what the standards mean? Do we have essential questions or big ideas? And then we have those 10 days. 2 of those he's reviewing all of the documents. Then we will meet with the CNIs the 7 other days and modify and make changes based on their recommendations. That will then be implemented for next school year.
Uniformity is the word. Uniformity is the word. The last thing we want to leave you with is just our focus this year, obviously, is the individual student. So you can read what we wrote up there for our goal, but how do we get a learning gain out of every student that walks into Charlotte County Public Schools? By the end of the year, do they make that learning gain? And so the support that we give needs to be towards that goal. So that's why we want uniformity with curriculum. We know what the kids are getting. We don't really want teachers utilizing resources that we haven't vetted. And while that might sound a little micromanaging, until we get it under control, we kind of need to know why they believe they need it and what it's filling that we don't know. And those are important questions. So, I appreciate the great work that Lisa and the team did. There's still a lot to be done with that, but it's a great start.
Any questions, comments? So I love the idea that across the district, we're all going to be really one team, right?
Yes.
We're all in it together. But can you speak a little bit about teacher autonomy still and the ability of a teacher within a classroom to suit the needs of their students, come up with their own materials at times to hit a target or whatever it may be?
Yeah, so I think the autonomy really lives in the delivery of the information and how they choose to deliver the information. It can't live within a standard because the standard doesn't change. They're tested on a standard. So if we, it's that fine line of really telling them how to teach versus what to teach. So we're into this needs to be covered. The what, how you do it is up to you. within utilizing the resources that we give. And that's not to say that they couldn't create some sort of project, but how does that fit with the pacing so the kids don't get behind? You know, it's a big puzzle, but yes, you are right. We do not want to say, teach this way, stand up, stand and deliver for 15 minutes and do centers. We want to offer them many options, along with the coaches and the principals on the best way that students can get this information and get that learning gain. So.
I think the, the creativity comes in that high-level questioning and the academic discussion. And I've been in some classrooms where I really have watched some master teachers at work with that. And that's gonna be different from classroom to classroom, how the teachers do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, if we look at coaching and what we want coaching to accomplish, we want coaching to make our teachers the best they can be. And that's where it starts, right? Because no matter what, they're in front of that class for the 45, 50 minutes and they're deciding what questions to ask. Even though we'll give them samples of what good questions are, they don't have to use those. Like I said, it's a big puzzle. One of the things we did at the end of last year is that we noticed that maybe sixth grade classes at the middle school level went to more of a traditional high school look, with kids talking to one another. So we actually invited the sixth grade administrators to walk through at some of our high-level elementary schools to see how those fifth graders were being taught. Because what we don't want to do is get the fifth graders used to talking to each other and talking about instruction and then get into the middle school level. So we'll continue to do that because we want to push that up as we go, so that we look at our high school classes to make sure those kids are talking to each other about the curriculum, because we know they can learn more from each other sometimes than they can from the teacher.
And a couple things, like my thoughts are next year as we roll out and we adjust our curriculum maps, those should be guides for our teachers and not be as strict about our pacing per se. Pacing is important. We need a guide map. We all know that. But like if I'm a second grade teacher and my students are a little bit higher, I might be 2 weeks off from that, right? We need that flexibility. I think that our maps need to allow for the flexibility where we do a lot of the heavy lifting with the teachers during the summer, but they have that autonomy to do different things. We're working closely with the coaches each month and the CNIs to build in additional instructional strategies. I think one of the hardest things is helping people see when we buy a textbook. We had this conversation a lot in June. We're not asking people to teach cover to cover. Some people try to do that where others are like, I absolutely can't. So helping them see that there's flexibility, that you're using your textbook, your standards, your knowledge of instruction strategies to deliver those rigorous lessons. So we just have to continue to make sure people know that that's what we're looking for.
Other comments, questions?
Good job, very good.
Thank you for a very summative.
Yeah, I've got one comment. We're gonna continue to talk about our portrait of a graduate, and that is built into our district strategic plan. And so our portrait of a graduate is more than just our students selecting an E upon graduation. It also requires our students to graduate being academically proficient. And so I wanna thank Bob and thank Lisa and the whole DOL team for developing that instructional framework, because we're not gonna get to our A district, we're not gonna get to our students being proficient just by wishing we could get there. We have to have a plan. The instructional framework is our plan. How we monitor that plan and problem solve and remove barriers and allocate resources as that plan is implemented will ultimately determine our success. But we've got a good plan, and I want to thank DOL for doing that.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we've got a budget update, Mr. Allen.
I think I can do this,
You're gonna
Mr.
do that?
Seeger. I can do this very shortly, quickly. There is nothing new to report. We have not received any additional information on our title grants, nor have we received the fourth calculation as of this morning.
Status quo.
Thank you.
Okay, FSBA platform items. Everybody brought forward what they've got. Oh, thank you.
So it's not due till September 5th, so we have some time still. Obviously, any member of FSBA can submit platform items. And then I don't know, as legislative liaison, if we want to talk about our overall platform or legislative priorities, when we want to do that. So we've got a lot of conversation that we can have around all of these pieces. I did get a chance to listen to was the FSBA's meeting last week that they did over the legislative update, which I know several of you had as well. And I'm guessing they had a lot of the same information, talking about our own platforms and what, you know, we need to make sure we kind of talk about this year. One of the things Dr. McDougall talked about was asking for money, which we've never really asked for BSA increases, but she said if you don't ask for it, you're not gonna get it. So that's just something to consider moving forward. Mental health allocation, talking about more money for that. What else? Just, Safe Schools allocation, so just some things to consider. They brought forward, HB 5101 with talking about capital monies and making sure that we all get equal share based on the students we're serving, not just, was charter schools getting K through 12 or serving pre-K through our adult education students. So a lot of things. I'm happy to submit things on behalf of the board to FSBA, or we can just do individual submissions. We've done kind of both in the past. I don't know which way you guys wanted to move forward.
I think it's better when we do it as a board.
Okay.
The last time around
Has
when I
more
was
voice.
the liaison. So I'm looking back at the 25 FSBA platform.
Yep.
And they did have increased the base student allocation by at least 5%.
Yeah.
That's gonna make it in anyway.
Yes.
I don't know that we need to submit a proposal for that. I do think the very last bullet point on FSBA's platform, where they're calculating the capital outlay FTE, that was something that I had submitted based on Greg Griner's feedback. I don't know, that's one of those things that I don't know will make it in unless we submit it. You mentioned HB 5101 being the bill that addressed that.
No, I think I was wrong with that.
I think 5101 is the
Oh,
one.
no, that's whoever provides support to the students should get paid for it, that's what it was.
What is it?
Whoever provides support to the students should get paid for it, so, I have to read that one again, but yeah.
Yeah, I think 5101 addresses that issue of how scholarship funds
Yes.
show up in the FEFP. And clearly that's been a huge issue, not just for us, but across the state. So I definitely would be in favor of putting a proposal for FSBA that would take scholarship funding out of the FEFP.
Yeah, I talked to Mark about this last week, and I had him, I think on cabinet on Thursday, you're gonna ask staff too, if they have any suggestions, so that might come from that as well. But I think it was Sarasota County last week with their meeting, they were talking about having the scholarship funding kind of be its own carve-out in its own district.
Kind of like lab schools.
Right, so all the money is flowing through them and it no longer comes through us.
Virtual
Correct,
schools or.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of that. I don't know if you all, how you feel about that.
Certainly, I hate to give up any autonomy, for lack of a better term, because then we don't have the same level of input we would have if we were locally involved. I mean, that would be my concern.
Over scholarship funding, what input do we have now?
Well, we don't have any,
Yeah.
that's the point.
I think, because if it's completely taken out of our budget, then we never see the money coming in. Hopefully they won't withhold money from us in the future if there's, so I think if they become their very own district, if we could advocate for that, then, so I'm fine if we don't as a board.
No, it's
but,
okay, it's
yeah.
fine,
I mean, it
I'm
takes
comfortable.
away where we're, the confusion that we had this year over what impact, if any, that scholarship funding had on our funding. If we take it out of our budget,
Okay.
then it's no impact on us. We know exactly what our budget is, and then there's no surprises, The superintendent and Mr. Allen feel very strongly that we had this surprise scholarship impact that we were not aware of that,
Okay.
that caused part of the issues that we're having now. If we take it out of the budget, then there'll be no surprises.
Well, there'll still be surprises.
Different surprises, and maybe not as big.
I think that's gonna be a big topic of discussion with all the member school boards, and I think that it needs to happen, so definitely I'll work with that.
It is on our agenda to talk about Thursday as well, and I don't want to speak for our cabinet prior to them, but I do believe we would have very support for that concept as well.
Okay.
I assume you're gonna want me to prioritize that with the consortium as well?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
asking.
I think-
mean,
Yeah.
I think whatever we put in for
Okay.
FSBA,
Right, sure.
also put in with the
Make sure I've got it,
consortium.
because I go up in 2 weeks, so.
Okay.
we're a little bit
I plan on working out later this week and early next week, so
Okay.
whatever language I submit, we can put out for everybody to see.
Thank you.
Was there any follow-up with the attendance priority?
I don't think they brought anything up for when I was in the meeting. Attendance and accountability, yes, was at HB 1367 last year. I think basically what can we do better to make sure we're getting kids to school? And I think there's not consensus among the districts of having that common language. I think people are a little nervous about that, but I feel like we should have common language in my opinion, but it's.
I think the way, I'd have to go back and look at the bill that did end up getting passed.
Mhm.
Did it end up getting
I don't
passed?
think
That was
so.
Erica Booth in the House. It didn't get the Senate
I don't think so.
companion. I think basically what she was asking for was some DOE rulemaking around that common language.
So that everyone's on the same page, every
Yep.
district reports the same way, or?
And I'm not sure why
And
the
it's-
Senate didn't
yeah.
pick that up. I think there were a lot of things, even though it was like the longest session in history, at the very end, a lot of things just ended up getting dropped, that could get picked back up this time around.
Well, if workforce housing is gonna be a priority for us, I think it's gonna be a priority statewide. Do we want to include it? Both the FSBA and the consortium to try to get some more help from the legislature.
What would the
Yeah,
ask
this
be?
is what we asked for.
Well, obviously, we're gonna have to ask for incentives in order to be able to utilize it here on a local basis. We're gonna need, all the inputs are coming locally, if I'm not mistaken. There's some, I think they could make some help.
So the way it was written last year's platform, support funding the workforce development capitalization incentive
Yeah.
grant program, is that
I think
sort
that's
of where you're
similar, and
headed?
make sure that we emphasize that this year if we're gonna be going down that road, the level we are locally. I just would like to emphasize it from us. I don't know, I haven't talked to the consortium representatives and where they stand at this point, but it's usually a well-received discussion at their level. So if we just wanna take the same language up, or do we wanna beef it up in any way, if you wanna look at that?
Okay, so right now I'm hearing family empowerment carve out for like its own district, workforce housing, absences, like common language.
Maybe look back at the House bill from before.
I will, yeah.
And maybe why it didn't get any Senate assistance.
Okay, but anything else besides those three that I'm missing?
Did you say capital outlay?
Alright, so I'll work on I will write up those four for FSBA from the board and I'll have Kristen send it out to you guys to make sure everyone's okay with it before I submit.
Do you have another meeting,
We've not had
on
we've not had an advocacy meeting scheduled yet.
And they haven't put out did we submit, Kristen, did we submit Kara's name as the
Yes.
advocacy rep?
Yeah, but I
So
haven't
then you
received
gotta look
anything
for
from
the-
them.
yeah.
Nothing yet?
Not yet, no.
My experience in the past, and this is as somebody who co-chaired the legislative committee, that I brought up as a concern is that I feel like sometimes the advocacy reps don't get a big notice that says, if you wanna be on the legislative committee, you need to put
Yeah.
your name in.
I mean, I haven't seen anything
And so we're
even.
gonna have to be on the lookout for that
Yep.
to make sure.
That would be helpful if they
Who's the
had
chair
one.
of that? At FSBA?
Legislative this year.
I have no idea. They announced it this summer, but I don't remember who it was.
Maybe reach out to
So,
that person.
so according to this timeline, we need, to have something finalized as far as what we're gonna propose.
By September 5th.
September 5th.
So like I said, I'll write up the drafts of that and have Kristen send it out to you guys. If there's anything that you wanna clarify or fix, you can let me know.
So it's about 10 days ahead of that from what.
Okay, What's your date?
27th and 28th.
okay, so we just need to done before then. Okay, I can do that. Anything else? Otherwise, you can submit anything you want on your own behalf as well.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you, Kara.
Make a policy council.
Oh, we didn't meet in July.
Have you met recently with that committee?
No,
Okay, I
the
just,
last time we met was, May, so.
and do we need a tentative workshop?
I don't think we do.
Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you once again for a great workshop, great information to use going forward, and appreciate getting the county here to kind of go over that bump and track situation, so looking forward to see how that will resolve. Obviously, that's gonna be a few years down the road, but appreciate it. At this time, I will close the school board workshop for August 12th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.